As Cher McArthur says of Humming Bee, don't be an asshole. Today we're going to talk about that exact topic on Behind the Book. Let's jump in. I'm Heather Andrews, and on Behind the Book, we journey beyond the cover. On each episode, I dive deep into the minds of authors, unlocking the mysteries behind their literary creations. Discover the stories behind the book exclusively here with me. Welcome back to Behind the Book. I have Cher McArthur from Humming Bee with us, and we were talking on the previous episode about the things not to do in culture. So welcome back, Cher.
Thank you.
And I think we're just going to dive right in with number 3.
Shoot, Heather.
Don't be an a-hole.
Yeah.
So, share with us what that looks like.
I don't think there's anyone that's out there trying to be an asshole.
Yeah.
That I don't think it's happening on purpose.
Right.
But there are things that leaders do in organizations that it kills culture. It absolutely damages their teams. The surprising thing, a lot of people think that people leave because a leader has a temper, or a lot of different things like that. One of the most impactful things for employees is when you give them something to do and it is meaningless. So you give them a project, they complete the project, they pour their heart and soul into it, and then you say, oh yeah, we're not going to use that piece of whatever it is that they developed. So to feel like their work is meaningless, it's pointless, there's no reward, there's no anything, they're working toward no goal. Mm-hmm. That will absolutely damage the culture, and it'll damage the people that you're doing that to. Not giving feedback, and we talked about that before, is one of the most damaging pieces for culture is rewarding the bad behavior. Mm-hmm. So the person who's not performing well ends up having some of their work taken away, and other people have to pick up the slack.
Right.
And in some cases, they're being paid the exact same amount, and I've even seen it where the person who's the poor performer, because they've been around for a long time, they're being paid more than the person who's doing 1.5 times the work.
Right.
So making sure that things are fair and equitable, that's huge. And I think there are a lot of companies that are getting better at doing that. They're looking in, they're digging in more, but that helps. And I think if I were going to come up with another piece of it, of just to like ask a lot of questions instead of assuming that this person wants something, doesn't want something, whatever that looks like. There's a promotional opportunity. Well, that person's not going to want it because they've got young kids. That person's not going to want it because whatever the thing is, and they don't approach the person, and now you've completely damaged that person in your culture. And other people will think, well, that person's perfectly qualified. So it's a great way to piss a lot of people off, is by making assumptions about what they can and can't do.
Right.
And I've heard people say outrageous things about people when they're during fasting, or when they're doing other things with they can't present because they're fasting right now. Well, they've been doing that since they were 5 years old. They're fine to present. Like for you or I, maybe it would be challenging, but they're not you or I. That's what they do. So ask them, are you comfortable doing that? And if they say no, great, here's an option for you.
But at least you've included them.
Yeah. And if the inclusion piece is there, the diversity will follow.
Right. So being that we've mentioned inclusivity and then diversity will follow, can you just give a little bit more on that? Because that's a big piece of abiding culture. It
Absolutely.
really is.
Diversity of thought is really important. So if I've got a team where it's all women, I love when a man joins the team, because now we've got this different ideas, different things. It's perfect. And then if it's a team of all men, I want to include a woman in that group. If it's everyone is from Canada, now somebody joined the team and they're from India or Nigeria, or now we've got this diversity of thought. They went to a different school than what we went to. So if I see that on a resume, I want to include that diversity piece. If all things are considered the same, I want to bring in the person who's got a little bit of a different perspective.
Right.
But the way to make that person stick within the team is to be inclusive. And if you're inclusive, automatically, if your team is that inclusive team and they appreciate that other people are going to think differently and they're open to other perspectives, they're going to automatically want to bring in somebody who's going to challenge their ideals.
Right. I love that. And from an HR perspective, when someone, comes to you with an issue, and I mean, you talked a little bit on, the do's and the don'ts. What is your role in that? And how does it affect the culture from a human resource perspective?
Wow, it depends on the situation.
Okay.
Because there are so many things that come up. There are people who do things that are illegal. Like there are people who've, they've stolen from the company, or and now sometimes if there's enough proof around what's going on, it's a pretty slam dunk. We just need to deal with this. There's enough information here that it's very clear. And then it can be anything from that to, well, this person hasn't performed very well. Okay, do they have a job description? No. Okay, what did you post this position? Well, no. So they don't know what they actually applied to. You brought them into the company. So if we start from there and then go through it to, okay, what does this person know they're responsible for, all the way through to, okay, what are the most recent communications around where this individual's performance is at, and are they aware that they're not quite there?
Right.
And the thing I love doing with my engineering clients is a gap analysis.
Right.
Because this is where we want the person to be, this is where they're at right now. How do we fill this gap, and have a conversation with the employee to say, do you think you can get there? This is where we'd like you to be. Do you think you can get there? And what would you need to be successful?
Right.
And it's amazing. And there's sometimes people that'll say, I don't think I can.
Right.
Now that I see that that's what I need to be doing, I don't have the skills for that, and I don't want to do that job.
Right.
You brought me in to do this job, and now you're asking me to, I don't want to do that. So it's having conversations and being open-minded.
Yeah.
Open-ended questions.
I love the open-ended question. It took me a while as a leader to figure out what some of the best open-ended questions were, but they're powerful once you hone in on them, especially in that conflict piece, and you talk to both sides and you bring it together, and it's like, oh, okay. It's amazing when you ask questions what you find out.
Yeah.
And it's good. And in your chapter within the Culture Revolution book, you talked a little bit about some of those cultural catastrophes. And so if we can just go there for a second in terms of just if you can give up a summation of what some of the cultural catastrophes might be that you have run across.
And this is going back several years now, thank goodness. I haven't heard this for years and years.
Yeah.
Worked with a fella who said, I love to hire single moms because they'll work twice as hard for less money, and because they need that job. And wow, and that was long before I became a mom, and I haven't heard anything like that for a long time, but what an impact that had on the culture. And it was evident that this was somebody who was exploiting some of the folks in the company. And I've worked in a company where they said, bring in new Canadians, they don't know what their rights are. Like, are you kidding me? But those are cultural catastrophes.
Yeah.
And when you've got somebody at the head of an organization that is willing to take advantage of people, it's disgusting. And it impacts the entire culture.
Yeah.
And a lot of the folks that are good folks, they're not going to stay because they don't want to be a part of any of that.
No.
Anytime there's any of the isms, as one of my friends calls it, racism, ageism, sexism, whatever the ism is, when those things are present and they're prevalent, then there's an impact to the organization. And I think intolerance, it's just intolerance and a lack of openness to learning about how things are for someone else or what their experience is. Or there are some very well-educated, brilliant people that have come to Canada that, man, they're spectacular.
Yeah.
And just because they didn't get their education here, can't say that Canadian education is the very best in the world. So there are a lot of folks that you give them a shot and they're going to prove themselves. They'll be great.
Yeah.
But ask them what they need.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of fear around that of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, but just ask them what they need.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Oh, such a big topic, hey?
Yeah, there's so much. It's
There's
my
so
world,
much.
and
Yeah.
I'm a little bit
And I
passionate.
love how you just talk about it just from a very matter-of-fact perspective, because these are the things that you've seen, these are the things that you've experienced, but yet not all of it has been, awful. There's probably been some very
Wonderful stuff.
excellent. So
Yeah.
so that's where we're going next. So where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Hummingbee has a presence on LinkedIn, or go to our website at hummingbee.ca.
Perfect. And so you've heard about all of the things not to do, and culture has its own vibe. It's a big topic, but stay tuned for the next episode where we're going to dive in about some of the great things that happen in culture when led by the right team. See you next time. As we close another chapter on Behind the Book, I want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our wonderful authors for sharing their stories. I'm Heather Andrews, reminding you that the adventure doesn't end here. Keep turning those pages, and I will see you next time.